everybody, coming at you from out in the wilderness. Now, I have an experiment to show you today, and I think you're going to love it. My brother gave me the idea because he was watching one of my previous videos about making a tent camouflaged and disappeared. But he came up with a brilliant idea to make a cheap tent look like a hill in the woods. Now, before we dig into this backpack and I show you what all we're going to do, I'm going to show you a couple examples because it was just, I mean, immediately right out in the open, I ran across some hills in the woods. And this is what we're going to try to mimic for whatever reason, whatever stealth reason, if you want to hide from people or just, you know what I mean, be left alone. Stealthy. So let's take a look at a couple of examples and then we're going to set up our shelter. Alright, we got flat land right there. You're looking along at all the leaves, and then you've got this big hill right here, just right there by the trail, and the hill goes all the way down, and then you've got flat land behind it. Okay, so that's one example. Here's another example. Flat land, a little bit of a hill there, pretty big hill right there. Got another little hump right there, and then there's like a two-layered hill right there, and then you got all flat land behind it. We got a little bitty hill right here, and then it goes down, and then there's another hill right in the back there, and if you come over here and look, there's another hill there. Alright, so that's enough of those examples. Well, there's two more hills right there. See, nothing in this area is flat. So we're going to go off into those woods there. We're going to try to find a sort of an open place full of leaves that we can set up our stealth tent shelter. I think I found it. We have an area right here that is covered in leaves, and there's a little open spot right here, and then we got plenty of trees around for cover, and there's a couple of hills nearby, so we're going to blend in. We're not going to stick out like a sore thumb. So let's dig through this backpack here, and I'm going to kind of talk about the plan. Alright, let's get this stuff out and talk about it for a minute. Now, the thing is, my brother was watching a video where, and some of you might have saw it. It was the video where I had a tent and I covered it with a camo bed sheet. Now the bed sheet was a perfect color. It was the exact same color as the surrounding area. But the problem was, as my brother noticed, he said even though that camouflage was perfect, he said you had the straight line sticking straight up from the tent with the dome on the top. And he said if there was just some way that you had a low profile tent. And then I thought, what about one of those one-man tents? But those one-man tents are kind of narrow. You want something that's got more of a natural hill shape. And so then the thought had occurred to me one time that I went to Goodwill, and they had it was a cheap, I looked it up, and it was a cheap, junky Amazon tent. And this cheap, junky Amazon tent was labeled $4. And I was like, wow, $4, I gotta have it, you know. So it was a gamble. I didn't look inside it, so I bought it, I brought it home, and there were no tent poles. So I thought, well, I'd be dang. Oh well. And so I just threw it in the gear room and didn't think nothing of it. I think it's in Nico. But anyway, I got to thinking about it after my brother had said that. And you can either take a cheap tent and cut down the poles, or like I did, this is an experiment. I took a tent with no poles, and I gathered through my collection of poles and made some shorter poles to make this tent a low profile deal. And the cool thing about it is of course you can use it in the winter with a big sleeping bag, but in the summer, the simple fact that you're going to be on the ground, you almost always need to be in a tent because of the ticks and the bugs and the chiggers and the black widows and even the scorpions. They'll eat you alive. So anyway, first thing we're going to do is we're going to set this tent up, and then we're going to put a camo cover over it. And I got a lot to talk about this camo cover here. True timber, 10 by 20. So that's going to be cool. And let's see, I got what is that? Oh, these things here, we're going to go ahead and get all the stuff out and lay it on the ground here. And then I got some stuff in this pouch that goes with it. Let's see. Not this, not this, not this. Okay, some little clips we may or may not need. I brought them because I set this thing up, and then I got some extra tent stakes. Alright, so let's start out by setting this tent up in this little open spot here. Alright, I got rid of most of the sticks over there and just left the leaves. The tent poles, this bag wasn't meant for this length of tent poles. So I put it in some socks. I didn't have a bag for it either. Alright, this tent, pull it out. It did come with the actual tent stakes. Now this is one that has this real thick, cheap tarp type material on the bottom. Instead of the lightweight ripstop nylon, it's got this stuff, which is actually more heavy duty. It's heavier, but more heavy duty. So the first thing we're going to do is lay this down. Now I'm gonna put the door facing away from the trail so that when you go in and out, it won't be on the same side as the trail. You got the tent laying on the ground. This is one of those kind that's got the crosses. You put two poles crisscross, and they've got, like, instead of the hooks, they've got the sleeves that you feed them through. So. And this particular tent, it's got the plugs on it for, let's see, it's got the little places on the end that these things go into. And so I made these little things here. Let's see if I can pull it out. Well, no, that one's too tight. But I machined these little aluminum pieces that'll fit into those plugs. And you can see this is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. This is 5 poles and a half a pole. And these are all leftover poles. My friend Oregon Mike sent me a bunch of them years ago, and I've gathered some up from older projects. But see that thing right there? That's the end that holds the shock cord in it. So I just put these together and slide them through. And then once that happens, you just put one end in the plug and just bow them up like that. So I got the poles fed through the fabric tubes. Now I just got to go and bow them up and stick them into the little pegs. Tent stakes are in and the bottom is stretched out, but as you can see, there's a whole bunch of extra fabric up here, and that's because this is supposed to tie off up here. So we're going to go ahead and tie this off, but even with that tied off, there's going to be a bunch of extra fabric there because this thing is made to be about 4 feet tall, and now it's only about 2 feet tall. So you've got all this extra fabric here and this stupid little fly that's supposed to go on, but it won't work because all this fabric's wadded up. So that's where these little clips come in. And what these are is these are little sewing clips for fabric. So they work great. They're very, very small, very lightweight, and they work great for this kind of stuff. So what we're going to do is we're going to pull up as much fabric as we can, and we're going to clip it together just like this. I'm going to go on the other side. That way the fabric won't be hanging down getting in the way. So he's pulling all this fabric up here, just kind of rolling it up and clipping it on. We're tightening it up. And these are pretty strong clips. So I can get even more out of this. That way the insides won't be sagging too bad. But it is going to sag where the door is. We're standing off at a distance, and as you can see, that thing is sticking out like a sore thumb. But it is low profile now because that thing is supposed to be about 2 feet taller. And it's below my waist. I'm going to go stand beside it so you can get an idea how low it is. See, it's definitely below my belt line. It's actually level with the top of my cargo pockets. Those of you that have these type of jeans, pants, you'll know how low that is. Next up, well, let's see. Now let's put in a sleeping bag and a pad next. Alright, so let's see how this door works now. It's a weird door. Now what I may do is, since we're going to have a tarp over the top of it, is I think I'm just going to leave this thing rolled up so it'll be out of the way. I think there's a loop up here. I'll put that in there for now. Alright, I'll tie that off, and then I think there's another loop down here. Here I can tie it off. Alright, so we got the door open here, and we have a zipper here. We'll zip it up this way, zip it up this way, and I think I'm going to have to pull up some more of this fabric right here. I may have to do some different modifications because, like I say, this is an experiment. So let's pull this in there. Also, before I get the tarp on, I want you to see that there's plenty of room in here. You know something? I'm going to get those other clips. Now I think while I got these other clips, I'm going to go ahead and pucker this up a little bit at the top. Let's pucker that up and pull it over a little bit, so that we got a little bit better there. And then I'm going to flip this over, put the clips on to hold it. These things are great for just all kinds of, just holding things back. Now I also want to see if there's plenty of room in here. So we got our self-inflating pad here. Like I say, this is a very, very cheap tent. If you're going to buy an expensive tent, don't cut the poles down or get an extra set. Let's see if we can pull this thing out. This looks like it has no name on it, but I do remember this is by Phoenix Gear. From Phoenix City, Alabama. I can't remember where I got it, but it's Phoenix Gear. But this thing's great because this is one of the few pads that I can remember, and you can hear it. See if you can hear that. It's actually self-inflating. And I've had so many of them that don't self-inflate. You see, once that thing inflates up, I'll tighten it up. And then we've got this thing here. This is it's a bivy sack with a Swedish Army fleece bag that goes inside it. It's a weird color, see that tag? But this is a real soft fleece. Look at that, I didn't realize that. I had a pad in there too. A thin pad, I could have used that and not carried that other thing. Well anyway, we'll put that there. All right, as soon as that inflates, and I'm gonna put this inside this bivy sack, we're gonna put it in there and make sure that we got enough headroom before we go any further. You off the tripod because we're gonna climb inside the tent, but I'll do a quick walk around while we're looking at it. All right, there it is. I put my sleeping bag inside the bivy sack, and I'm just gonna lay on top of it instead of crawling inside to make sure, because I'm gonna have to have the camera in there with me, but to make sure that we got plenty of room in there. Now you can already see that inner wall is flopping because of the material. This right here really needs to be pulled out. And since it's a cheap tent, you know something, I may just pull that out and sew it. Because see, like that it flops in. But that's why we set these things up before we use them, to see if they work. Let's crawl inside. Now, I'm going to go up here. I'm going to put my feet at the end, just like that. Oh! And my head at this end. Alright, now, let's see. Look, I bet you my feet are touching, okay? And I bet you with my boots off that won't be an issue. And then right over here, look, you can see this fabric flopping down. I might have to set this up and do some modifications in it. And see, I got room right over there in the corner to put the backpack and whatever. And then look right over here. This thing's laying on my head. See, all I got to do now, let's unclip it. Unclip that. And then let's zip it up. Zip up the bottom. This is hard to do hand holding the camera. Okay, now with that zipped up, this ain't touching my head. And my feet, look at that. This is the stupid little thing for tying that the thing off. It's laying right on my head. But anyways, you can see right here, I'm inside. Yeah, I could sleep like this. It's not the most comfortable in the world, but like I said, this fabric would be up if it had the full tent poles. But this is what you get with it low. And see, we still got a little bit of mesh open so that it can breathe. But there's a lot of room over there for a backpack. See, I could sleep like this. Oh. Now, let's get to the camo stealth part. So now it's time for a fabric lesson from your old Uncle Dave. This is polyester. This is a water-resistant polyester. And every time I make a tarp, I'm always looking for one thing, I'm looking for the camo pattern, and I'm always looking for either water-resistant or waterproof, one or the other. Right. Now, this is 100% polyester twill. Okay. What is twill? Twill is not a type of fabric. Twill is a type of weave. Now, the normal weave, one direction is called warp, and one direction is called, I think, whelp or welt, something like that. But anyway, most fabrics are weaved this way. Right. Very, very, very strong and expensive fabric is called twill. And twill is a bizarre series that's run diagonally and interwoven diagonally with the length. And it's real strong, super strong fabric. But the problem is as soon as you cut it, the ends just start rolling off. So you got to be real careful when you do the ends. And so when I did this, I ordered enough to make it 10 foot by 20 foot. Huge tarp, because I got to thinking about myself, if you have a short tarp that doesn't have much distance, it's going to go up like this. But the bigger the tarp, you can spread it out and make it more like a natural hill. Now this thing right here, the ends, I folded them over 3 times You know, I folded it over once, then folded it over twice, and then I stitched it twice. The inside's like white, and then I put loops on it. Now this True Timber has got a bunch of different names. They've got like True Timber Advantage, and you know, there's different patterns. True Timber, I think Strata. But when I've ordered this fabric off Etsy, and it didn't have a name, it's just called True Timber. Look at that. There's the name right there. Can you see that? I hope I'm showing it to you. It's right between my fingers. It just says True Timber Camo. That's all it says. Now, this is about as close as I could get to this forest. But even though you got a camouflage tarp, it's awesome to just go ahead and throw some leaves on top. So, to help it blend in, and maybe even some sticks. So let's throw this over this tent and make this bad boy disappear. Now when I first put it on there, I put it on wrong because it's a 10 foot by 20 foot. And the narrow part of the tent, I wanted that to be the 10 foot. And the longer part, I wanted it to be the 20 foot. And as you can see, you can still see the sidewalls of the tent. So I'm going to take stakes now and try to pull that tarp tight to make it look like a hill. While I'm thinking about it, here's a little trick on tent stakes. When you package your tent stakes in a pouch, this is something I've been asked about before. When you package them, put half one way and half the other way. That way you've always got a rounded end on each end, because if you put them all in like that, you're going to have all these ends poking your pouch, poking a hole in it. And nobody likes a poked pouch. So turn them like that. As you can see, it's still got kind of that shape of the tent to it. So I'm just going to go around and finish putting the stakes in, and then I'm just going to go around stretching, 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 and that's going to put pressure on the tent poles and pull it down and make it look more like a hill. And as you can see on this side, that is perfect. That is the perfect slope right there. And where these edges are, the camo just doesn't match this orange looking leaf color. It'll look better, I think, maybe in the spring and the summer. But for now, it doesn't matter. As long as it's somewhat camo, we're going to throw leaves and pine straw and everything all over it. Now that tree is in the way, but I ain't going to mess with it. We're just going to have to live with that for now, because, you know, this is just a test setup. But I'm going to continue stretching those other sides and seeing what I can do. Alright, so we got it stretched out pretty good, but we've got those definitive lines where the tarp stops and the forest floor ends. Now, I might be needing to work on a portable rake, but what we're going to do next is just, and I didn't even bring a bag, I should have brought a bag, but we're going to scrape up leaves off the forest floor and just throw them around it and on top of it. And especially where the tarp meets the forest floor, and we're going to go uneven like to try to disguise this thing. You work up a sweat doing this if you ain't careful. I had to remove my hat, but I forgot I had the tarp, ground sheet that I used to put my pack on. Now, the thing about this is you have to kind of go out and around your perimeter to gather your leaves. Don't gather them near the tent because you don't want to denude the ground floor of its leaves, because then you're defeating the purpose of camouflage and everything. Alright, that is enough for me. It'd be better if I brought a little portable rake next time and a bigger tarp to put leaves on. So much easier. Gathering them by hand's terrible. Now you may ask, you may say, why don't you just throw a tarp over it, stretch it out, cover it with leaves? Inevitably you're going to miss spots, and the trees, the wind's going to blow and leaves are going to fall off. So it's good to start with a camo tarp. Now, I'm going to take you off the tripod and let's do a walk towards. And remember, you're always looking at this with the mindset that someone is not actively looking for you. And say I even put a few tree limbs on top. Let's see how the edge, you can see part of the edge right there sticking out, but for the most part I've covered it and blended it in. Alright, now let's make another walk towards from the other direction. Now like I said, you have to think about this in the terms of, is someone actively looking for you? Would somebody see you? You know what I'm saying? Let's do one more walk through from the other direction. Now this side's not as good because I've got that back side right there to where I didn't stretch it out because I have to crawl under it to get in it. So, I don't know, maybe I should have done, if it was a dedicated tarp, maybe I should have put a zipper on it. But what do y'all think? Now with this in mind, I just noticed something that I want to show you that's over in that direction. Notice how it's got the lighter colored spots. It's like a greenish gray from a distance. Let's go over here for a minute. And see, this is another part of that. I don't know. Is somebody looking for you? Check this out. Look at that. It's a big old rock. It's got that greenish gray look to it. It's smaller, mind you. See if we can walk back to the shelter from here. Since I'm so far away. Now remember, just kind of look around at the forest and think to yourself, oh, now look, to me, I don't know what it looks like on the camera, but to me that looks like a rock. Right there, looks like a rock. I'm going to walk straight towards it. After looking at that rock, that's what it looks like a rock sticking up out of the ground. There ain't no way that I would think that was a shelter. As with all these projects, I got a little bit of tweaking. I tell you, I think that was a success. And it could have some more leaves. But then again, maybe it doesn't need to be completely filled with leaves. Maybe if it looks like it's all leaves, maybe it looks like a hill, but maybe if I leave these spots, maybe it will look like a rock. That is so cool. Alrighty. Hope you enjoyed it. Hope you had fun. As with everything, like I said earlier, everything needs a little tweaking. This was all, the poles were built in my basement and the tarp was sewed up in my basement. And this was during the ice and the snow, so I wasn't able to get it out. Today's the warmest, driest day of the last 2 weeks. So I got it out, tried it, and I think it's a success. So, and see, if you build a debris shelter, you're going to go inside and it's going to be horrible. But inside, I got a nice, dry, cozy tent with a mat and a nice sleeping bag. So, you know, inside that hidden stealth shelter is just comfort. Hope you enjoyed it. Hope you learned something. Get out, enjoy life, make things instead of buying things, and we shall. See you in the next one.